Hey folks, it's me, it's Joe. It is monthly channel update and Patreon Q&A time, and let's start with the big thing that I'm so excited about in terms of the channel update. Oh, look at that. Rode microphone on a stand right here. No lav mic, no cables, no crunchy thing in the shirt, no rubbing against my neck, which will cause it to make weird noise against my beard. Because now I have a shotgun mic, which I got a boom pole. So I got it as a set. It came with the boom pole, the mic, the boom pole, and a 25-foot extension cord, which you obviously can't see. But all that stuff to make it so that I no longer have to wear the lav mic. And this should be higher quality sound as well. So the Trojan episode of Same Name Different Game is the last time I will be using the lav mic. My first lav mic was a gift from a current patron before that was even a thing. They sent it to me, I think early. It was early, like Beavis and Butthead episode or the Double Dragon episode, like somewhere in there is when I first got the lav mic. So before that it was the onboard camera microphone from my old camera, which is why the audio levels in some of the early videos are like, because that mic on the camera wasn't super great. And then I had a lav mic, then I replaced that lav mic because it started having problems, started cutting out. I think the wire was getting a little frayed because I'd had it for so many years. So then I got a different lav mic. Lav mics are cheap though. They're convenient. I didn't mind having that one. And I was very grateful to get the first one because I was like pretty broke. My wife was still in undergrad when I got that first one. So it wasn't like I could just go buy equipment whenever I felt like it. But having the lav mic helped. Then I replaced it with another cheap lav mic, which I also used for podcasting for a long time until I got a Blue Snowball, which I'll probably still use for streaming podcasting type stuff. I'm not sure. I'm gonna check. I'm gonna hook this one up to the computer and see how it does, especially since I have the mic itself came with. Let's see here. Hopefully this doesn't mess up the audio levels, but it has a shock stand attached to it here. This red thing is a shock stand, so hopefully moving it actually helped. This is me testing it too, by the way. This is the test run for this microphone, so hopefully moving this didn't actually affect the sound because of this red rubber shock stand that came on the mic, so that shouldn't be a problem. And then the foam is a pop filter, right? So I don't need a separate pop filter. Some people put a, you know, like with my Blue Snowball, I could probably use a pop filter. So since this mic is a lot nicer than that one, I may just use it for broadcast. But the Snowball is nice because it's convenient. All I have to do is plug it into a USB port. This has to go in the plug in the back, and since I'll be using it for video stuff, I don't know that I'll want to do that every time. There's USB ports on the front of my PC. Plug in the Snowball, and away we go. So, not honestly sure if this is going to be the new podcasting / streaming mic or not. I'll test it there too and see. The nice thing is it has a low pass filter option right built into it, and actually, just for the sake of continuing the testing, the low pass filter is on now. I don't know if you'll notice a difference. I'll see if I notice a difference in the edit, and we'll see how that goes. Because again, part of this is testing this microphone. I'm going to switch it back to normal. So yeah, that's the big exciting news. This was bought with Patreon dollars, and so thank you very much. There was an eBay coupon. I guess now it was last week, and it was 20% off anything, though over $50. And I was looking at games and stuff, and are there any expensive games that I want to buy? Blah blah blah. And then I was like, wait a minute, I've been meaning to get a new microphone. I'll just do that. So between Patreon and that coupon, I was able to get this microphone. So thank you very much, because these Rode mics are not cheap. You know, the Blue Snowball and the even a Blue Yeti are quite a bit cheaper than a Rode microphone. Some people buy them secondhand. I think Eric from Game vs. Game told me he got his secondhand. This is a brand new one, but it was purchased with Patreon dollars. And I think I've made it clear in the past, but just in case I haven't, Patreon money always goes back into stuff that I use for the show. If ever this enterprise was to get really, really big and I was to be able to, say, make a living off of it, then obviously I would be buying food, paying rent, whatever, as a lot of big tier people do. But as long as I have a day job and this is like a small enterprise, all of it goes into equipment. I bought the FrameMeister with Patreon money, this microphone with Patreon money. Obviously I've bought a lot of games and stuff, EverDrives that help the show. The last time I cashed out on Patreon, because it's such a relatively small amount for me that I don't automatically transfer it every month. I save it into chunks and then I manually cash out. So last time I got the Turbo EverDrive. This was Patreon money, because rare PC Engine and TurboGrafx games cost so much money that if I want to cover a lot of that stuff, that was just a way more cost-effective option. That Japanese PS2, so I can get good, easy quality footage of Japanese PS1 and PS2 games, which is a big thing. I had a soft mod on my American PS2, but that only works for PS2 games, and it doesn't work for PS1 games. It doesn't work for DVDs. So I have some Japanese DVDs from when I lived in Japan. I can watch those. Best of Tiger Mask, stuff like that. Actually, I have a Japanese copy of Valley Girl. I have a Japanese copy of Kill Bill, which has the fight with the Crazy 88 is in color in the Japanese version of that movie. So I haven't watched that in a long time because I haven't really been able to, but now I can. And PS1 games, Gradius Gaiden, and I have one of the Parodius, Gokujo Parodius Da, which is like a double pack on PS1. I have some PS1 wrestling games and stuff, and I've actually bought some PS1 games. So yeah, that's what Patreon money always goes to, stuff that supports the show. And again, this microphone is a pretty big spend, and so I'm really grateful that you folks are here to support me and allow me to get this kind of equipment that helps make the show better. Oh, the lights, obviously. The lights that are shining on me right this very moment, those were Patreon. Those were Patreon buy. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that. Other than that, channel update stuff, there really isn't much. We're going to find out if the mic picked up my stomach growling because I'm pretty hungry, but I wanted to get this done. My wife is out of the apartment right now, which mitigates other noise, and I don't have to tell her not to come in the bedroom while I'm shooting and all that stuff. So I decided she was out doing some stuff today, so I would shoot this now, and I will eat afterwards. So we'll see if this caught the stomach growling or not, and then I'll know in the future. Don't record when hungry. So yeah, let's move on to your Q&As. Oh, sorry. One other thing that is, maybe this will be better in the July episode, or installment, this is not really an episode, installment of the channel update, but I don't want to say too much about what it is or what the context is, but I am going to be recording and producing a guest segment in a video for Brazzle the Gamer. I'm getting it to him by July 1, so I assume he's posting it at some point in July. So, yeah, that's happening. And other than that, it's Capcom Chronology. Now everybody knows. Patrons and non-patrons who watch this, you all know that the summer series is the Capcom Chronology, and the next video in that series, I will disclose, because so few people watch these that you can kind of feel like you're in on something. The next episode is going to be, I hinted at it at the end of the Trojan episode, but it is going to be Titan Warriors, which is an unreleased NES-only sequel to Vulgus. And it never came out, but there is a dump of the ROM, of it nearly finished. That's channel update stuff. Let's move on to Q&A. We've got 4 questions this month. And we will start with, what are some consoles you really would like to get much more familiar with? That's an easy one because there's actually a pretty good size. It's weird because, you know, when I talk to normal people, you know, like everybody at work knows I'm super into video. I don't hide this when I go to work or anything. So everybody at work knows that I'm super into games, and so when people like talk to me and they're like, you know, well, how many systems do you have? And I'm like, I don't know, like 20, however many systems that I have now. And they're like, wow, you must have like every system. And it's like, no, no. There's a lot of systems I don't have. I would hesitate to say Neo Geo, partially because I monologued about the Neo Geo in last month's Q&A, but also because I'm not sure that I would say I don't know a lot about the Neo Geo, I just don't have one. My gut instinct is to say the Jag. I think that the Jag is this really, like, it's very much this sort of too weird to live, too rare to die sort of system, and it's got this very... it's like the bigger the failure commercially that a console was, the more rabid the fan base is. So it's like, you know, Nintendo fans are kind of a dime a dozen, and they're not... I mean, there are a lot of passionate Nintendo fans, myself included, but if you are a Nintendo fan to the exclusion of everything else or most other things, they tend to be, honestly, from what I see anyway, some of the least rabid, which is not to say that Nintendo fans can't be terrible, because they can. I mean, fans of anything can be terrible, as we've been finding out recently in the media. But then there's like a very rabid, passionate, like, Sega fan base, because Sega is sort of viewed as this perpetual also-ran, even if that is sort of revisionist history in some ways, particularly when it comes to the arcade, but like, whatever. So there's like a very passionate Sega fan base. And then when you get into stuff like the Jag, like, people who are into the Jag are super into the Jag. And the PC Engine too. People who are into the TurboGrafx, which again was a successful system in Japan, not so much in the US, and so Americans who are into the PC Engine, again, I am including myself here, are pretty, but I'm not like a fan of these things to the exclusion of other things, obviously. So I don't really count myself in that same way, but, you know, people who are first and foremost TurboGrafx fans, or first and foremost Jaguar fans, are like very, very rabid, and I think that there's usually something to that, and I often want to find out what it is. So actually the 2 systems right now that I feel like I want to acquaint myself with the most are the Jag, and I've really been on the precipice of actually there's 3. The Jag, the 3DO. I've really been on the precipice of getting a 3DO for a long time, of like, man, that 3DO, and I know that there's like a lot of the stuff got superior ports to the PlayStation and Saturn after the fact, and but there's some really interesting curios on that system. Stuff like Twisted, which a friend of mine had a 3DO when we were kids. And he had, you know, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And, you know, he had Twisted. Like, I remember my 10th birthday party, December of 92. I think maybe it was my 11th birthday party, now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know when the 3DO was released, but if it was out in 92, because he got one when they were new, then it was my 10th birthday party, and we went sledding, because I live in Wisconsin, and then he brought his 3DO over to my house, and a whole bunch of us played Twisted, which is, it's just, like, if you watch videos of it on YouTube, I don't have any footage because I don't have the game, and I haven't done work on getting a 3DO emulator running or anything, so, but it's so, it is weird. It was published by EA, if I remember correctly, never left the platform, it's a 3DO exclusive, and it is just I mean, it's a mini game collection, but it's also sort of like, it's like dunking on like 90s TV culture in a weird way, and it's just, it sort of has to be witnessed. Yeah, and it's a thing to behold, and that's, you know, there's stuff like that on the 3D, weird curios that I just sort of want to explore. And Chris Genthi of Implant Games recently figured out and passed along to the folks at My Life in Gaming that some Japanese models of 3DO have a switch on the back that will let it natively output RGB. So you don't have to mod it, you don't have to do anything, you get a 240p RGB signal out of it, and man, I would actually like to track down one of those in particular at some point, and you know, get acquainted with the 3DO. And the last one I would say is the Vectrex. 2 years ago at Too Many Games, I almost bought a working Vectrex. It would have killed all of the money that I had brought with me to spend at that trip on games. Like, I would have been able to eat, but it would have wiped out the money that I brought with me for shopping. And so I saw it. It was like the first or second thing I saw, and I was like, oh man, I want that Vectrex. And I was like, but I had to lug it with me, and I had to take it on the Amtrak to come back to DC from Philly, and you know, do I want to deal with all that? And while I was thinking it over, like within a couple hours, someone bought it. But the Vectrex is one where I've just been very, very fascinated, especially because there's a couple episodes of Same Name Different Game I want to do that have Vectrex ports, and I would really like to be able to use a genuine Vectrex to do that, to get that stuff. Any remakes that weren't Same Name you wish you could have covered? So a lot of times when publishers remake a game, they change the name. DuckTales Remastered, Bionic Commando Rearmed, stuff like that, and that, in my opinion, disqualifies it from the show. Now, lately I've been at least sort of chiming in on those because a lot of people were, mad is not the right word, but were confused or upset that I did not talk about Twin Snakes in the Metal Gear Solid episode. And so rather than respond to a million comments saying this game doesn't have the same name, that's why I'm not covering it, I just sort of show whatever the game is for, like, you know, a minute and say, like, here's this thing, I like it. It's not really covered under the show's purview, but, like, here we go. I did that in the Mega Man episode. I showed Powered Up for a minute and was like, yep, that's the thing that exists. It's pretty good, but it's not really got anything to do with this episode, strictly speaking. And then I did it for Punisher. The Game Boy version is called Punisher: The Ultimate Revenge, or Ultimate Payback. And I was like, yep, here's the thing. It's part of the NES game, more or less, and it's called something different, so I'm not really talking about it, but, like, here it is. So I've been trying to do that more. Bionic Commando is definitely a thing I'm going to get to at some point. It is not part of the Capcom chronology, because this is a generational thing. So we started with the 3rd generation, 4th generation, and then we'll end in the 5th generation. So Bionic Commando is not going to be part of the Capcom chronology, but I will definitely be doing Bionic Commando because the arcade, the NES, and the 2009 remake all have the same name, and there's a handful of ports of the arcade game and on microcomputers and stuff. Bionic Commando is a game I really, really like, and I have been wanting to cover it pretty much since I started doing the show and just haven't found a place to slot it in yet, but I will absolutely be doing an episode on Bionic Commando at some point. And I will do as I've done, you know, with these other games I just mentioned. I will say, like, here's Bionic Commando Rearmed, it exists, it's a thing, I'm not gonna go in depth about it, but it's really dope. But going back, I don't know that there's any that I regret, just because in the early days, I was very careful to choose the versions. There was no sort of pretense of completeness. And now I feel like I've set the standard for myself where, at the very least, if I'm talking about a game and there's multiple console versions, that I really need to be covering, if not all, at least the major beats on consoles. And I can't really think of any games that I've already covered that I couldn't revisit the same way I did Double Dragon or Beavis and Butthead, that I couldn't just revisit in a way and just say like, oh, here's the versions that I missed. And so, no, I guess the short answer is no. There's nothing, there's no remakes with different alternate titles that I'm sad I didn't get to cover, because I mean, it's my show, so if I really wanted to cover them, if I really felt like I needed to talk about them, I would just do it. What are some of the most famous and well-known games you've never played? Well, until about a year and a half ago, the answer would have been, for big answer, would have been Super Metroid, but I have since played it, and I don't know if it's just because I played a lot of Symphony of the Night first before I ever played Super Metroid, but it didn't really push my buttons in quite the same way as Symphony of the Night, or as quite the same way as a lot of other people who say it's their favorite game, or their top 5 favorite games, or top 10 favorite games, or whatever. I liked it. It was good, but I didn't love it in the way that a lot of folks did. But I do want to go back to it. I didn't finish it. I want to go back to it and actually finish it. So that would have been one, but now I've done it. So, well-known and famous. I mean, there are a lot of games that I just kind of skip because I know I'm not interested in them. So like XCOM. Mike loves XCOM. Mike's done multiple playthroughs on this channel of XCOM and XCOM 2 and stuff. I've never played any of the XCOM games. Never played any of the Civilization games. Yeah, I don't know. I guess like I'll stick to ones that I feel like I should have played or that I want to play, rather than stuff that's just like straight up in a genre I don't really care that much about. So here's an interesting one. I've never played this. I'm like a Resident Evil super fan, I think. And maybe this disqualifies me from that title. You know, Resident Evil 1 was the first PlayStation game I ever owned. Resident Evil 2, I got the day it came out. I remember going on a vacation to Arizona with my family for Brewer's Spring Training. We used to go every year. We'd go down to Arizona for spring training. And I remember going for spring training and having the Resident Evil 2 strategy guide with me, which it's up in that closet and I can't get to it right now without moving a whole bunch of stuff. Otherwise, if I'd thought about this, I would show it. But the Resident Evil 2 strategy guide, which also, the hype is real for the Resident Evil 2 remake from this guy. This is, E3 was this week as I'm recording this, and I'm like on the hype train for Resident Evil 2. Which also, while I'm talking about Resident Evil very quickly, I had considered doing Resident Evil 2 as the Halloween special this year, but the remake isn't coming out until January, and I don't want to do an episode on it without talking about the remake, because we've known for a couple of years that it's coming, and that's what stayed my hand from doing Resident Evil 2 as a Halloween special, because they announced, I think was it 2 years ago at least, maybe 3 years ago, but they said, you know, we're gonna do it. Dude had the We Do It shirt on, right? You remember that reveal? And now we've seen it, we know when it's coming out. It's not going to be out before Halloween, so Resident Evil 2 will not be the Halloween special this year. But, you know, maybe, like, I don't know, next year? Let's put it this way. I'm planning to, when I play Resident Evil 2, I'm planning to record the whole thing. No reason. Anyways, so, Resident Evil 4, I got the day it came out. Oh, I don't think I ever really finished that. I was in Arizona, I had the Resident Evil 2 strategy guide, which flipped. One side was Claire, and then you flipped it over and it was Leon. I'm poring over that strategy guide while we were in Arizona. And, like, I mean, still going to baseball games and stuff and enjoying that trip. But, like, I would go lay by the pool and read the Resident Evil 2 strategy guide. I would, you know, because the game came out in January, but I hadn't finished it yet. Oh, no, I remember. My PlayStation broke. So if you remember, PlayStation 1s had this thing where the motor would not, and so you'd start getting circular scratches on your games. This was like kind of an epidemic, especially if you set your system on a carpet, which I did at the time. Or at least that's what they said. If you set it on a carpet, it could make the base uneven, and that would make the motor wobble, and you'd get circular scratches from it, like skipping across the laser. And so the solution was, of course, to like put your PlayStation in a weird position. And for a while, I had it upside down, balanced on 2 Genesis carts. Don't remember which one, so don't ask. And that played games for a little while, but eventually a friend of my dad's just sort of like got over playing video games as much and was just like, oh, you can have my PlayStation. So then, so I didn't actually get a chance to fully sink my teeth into Resident Evil 2, no pun intended, until spring of that year. So it was like I had it for, you know, a month or two before I actually got to really get into it and play it a lot. So I was poring over the strategy guide on vacation. But Resident Evil 3, I guess I just felt like Code Veronica was Resident Evil 3, and so I got that when it came. I got a Dreamcast right away. I got Code Veronica when it came out, played through that a bunch of times. But Nemesis just sort of passed me by. And I never went back. I never went back to it. Resident Evil 4 came out. Well, Resident Evil, the remake came out. I got that right away. 0 came out. I got that right away and didn't like it. To this day, 0 is my second least favorite of the mainline Resident Evils after 6. So yeah, so that I haven't played. I'm planning to rectify that soon. Soonish. But, yeah, I mean, I own games that I haven't played. And then there's a lot that I didn't play. GTA 5, skipped that one. I played 4, wasn't really into it. And my affection for the GTA series had been sort of on a downward trend anyways, and by the time I got to 5, I was just like, I don't really think I need this. And so I never played GTA 5. I've played a lot of, I mean, I don't know, I've put a lot of games over a lot of time. So, yeah, I think those are probably some of the major ones I can think of off the top of my head. Last question, what are some mechanics you simply hate? I.e. when a shoot 'em up has a temporary power-up that really grinds my gears. Well, I'm with you on that. I don't like that. I don't like the timed power-up thing. Like Gunner's Heaven does that. There's a timer on your power-ups. And oh, weapon degradation. I have put down Vagrant Story. That's a very popular game that I have played, and I hated it. I know a lot of people love Vagrant Story. I couldn't stand it, despised it, and a lot of it was because of the weapon fragility, weapon degradation stuff. I put it down, never picked it back up. No desire to pick it back up. Breath of the Wild is one of the few games that I've actually managed to get all the way through that has weapon degradation, but I also got the Master Sword as quickly as I could. Yeah, I mean, even when you get the legendary weapons from all the different races, like, those break. You can rebuild them, but they still break. And it was just, especially in Breath of the Wild, where combat just started to feel like a chore, and unless I was in a dungeon or a divine beast, if I just saw like moblins on the plains or whatever, I started avoiding them. But yeah, the Master Sword does a really good job of sort of avoiding a lot of that stuff, so I went for that. But that game was so good that I just kept playing it. But weapon degradation is probably like one of my number one things. That would be the one that I would just go to right away, just because, again, there's been games that I have just quit playing because the weapon degradation sucked so bad and was so frustrating. And then it feels like busy work or a chore to get a new weapon, and you don't want to use your good weapons because you're never sure when they're going to break, and like, I hate that. I hate that mechanic. So that's all the questions. Person or people who sent those questions via email specifically sort of said that part of the reason they sent them was to be less public, so I don't know if those people did want to be acknowledged. I'm sorry, and I misread that, but it's better to err on the side of caution. It's easier to not... The lesser trespass, I think, is to not name somebody who wants to be named than to name somebody who did not want to be named. So the questions were from patrons like you. And if you're not a patron, you can become a patron. Go to patreon.com/same-name-different-game, and for a mere $1 per video per episode of the main shows, not any video that I post. But $1 per video, you will get early access, and for $3 per video, you can ask me questions in this forum, and I will answer them like this. Adios.